Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Random Rambling. It's been quite some time since I've done one of these, and I just have been itching to have some chats with people here on the channel once again. And so I'm bringing it back, and I'm very happy to also announce that it is officially all the episodes on Spotify. I do plan to get it everywhere else, but this episode, after it airs here on YouTube, will be available on Spotify as well. So whether you're watching this live or after the fact, thank you for tuning in. And today I'm very happy to be joined by Sarah of Popcorn Chat, a fellow YouTuber who also talks about movies, has done coverage on film festivals, as well as getting the great opportunity to interview some big names in the world of film. So, Sarah, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me on and letting me sort of be one of your sort of first guests back on this revival. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about all things films today.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm more than happy to have you on. And when I was thinking about bringing Random Rambling back, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to try to have people on that I don't frequently have on. We have some of our mutual peers. We've been in the same kind of like YouTube circle. We've supported each other's videos and
Yeah.
follow each other on social media, but we never actually collabed. And so I was like, I want to start getting people on
Mhm.
that I haven't collabed with yet. And you were kind of in that short list of people that I was like, let me try to get Sarah on immediately. So I usually like to start these off when I'm talking to a fellow YouTuber with a similar question. YouTubing can be an awkward thing when you get started. It can be this really uncomfortable and daunting thing, but it can also be really fun. So I'm curious, what was it that kind of pushed you over the edge to get started on YouTube? Do you remember that moment where you first turned on the camera and how you felt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like many people who've been on here and like who've done like film YouTube as well. Like I started in COVID, I started in lockdown in 2020. I originally started as a blog. I made it as a website where I just was like behind the screen, no one saw my face, just kind of writing regular film reviews. And then I thought, hang on, what am I doing? Like, because I'm a videographer in my day job, I should probably utilize that. And I decided to start talking to a camera, yeah, around sort of March 2020. Yeah, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's so funny you say that because I was watching some old videos of me back in 2020 recently, and it's interesting to see how much like more confident I've got with speaking on camera. How I present myself has just changed for the better. Definitely. It's very cringy watching it back. Maybe I should do a video like watching them again because they are so bad. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of, give my opinion, vocalize it, because sometimes I feel I'm better at saying my thoughts rather than written down. I don't know, I can get stuck in my head a little bit, but I think sort of videos are a great way to just say, oh, this is, straight away, this is what I think, and instant reactions are great. So yeah, I've been doing it for like, yeah, 5 years now, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember I started a little bit before the pandemic, but then yeah, the
Mm.
pandemic is really where I dive deep into it, and it's been great to see certain people that I follow grow in this space. Like I said, we haven't collabed before, but I've been watching your videos for the last few years, and yeah, it
Yeah.
has been great to see how the editing has changed, how you're,
Mm.
you know, just how comfortable you feel in front of the camera in comparison to when you started. And I really love seeing that growth in people. I could think about so
Mm.
many people that are part of our peer group. One that pops to mind immediately is Mike of Did You See
Yeah.
That? When I first met Mike, and he was one of the earlier friends I made on YouTube now, um, he was like pretty awkward on camera. We joke about this, but he was like a very quiet. He didn't have like a microphone, this, that, and the
Mm.
third. And to see how much he's grown now and like see how much he's done is really awesome. So similarly with you, it's like I've been able to kind of see your channel grow. And in the last year, you've had some big opportunities. I mean, I think that would be just an understatement to say you've been able to interview people like Josh O'Connor, George
Mm.
McKay. You've been able to cover film festivals over there in the UK, and you've got some really great opportunities, which is really, really great to see. And so, another question before we get a little deeper into you into your YouTube channel. Film obviously is integral to what we do, but I love hearing people's stories about what made them fall in love with film. For me, I can think back. I've talked about it before, where I used to sit around and watch these random movies that my mom and my dad would throw on for me, and they were so different, right? Like Star Wars being a huge one that still kind of stuck with me into my
Yeah.
older years, but like my dad was like big on the Rocky and Rambo, and my mom was big on like 16 Candles and The
Yeah.
Breakfast Club, and there was all these movies that were integral, and it was kind of sitting around with them and being introduced to these films, and also watching the new stuff that was coming out when I was a kid that was like really pivotal.
Mm.
And so I think about certain movies that were really important. Can you remember maybe a period of your time in your life where you're like, okay, I've gone from like I like movies like everybody else likes movies to like, okay, I think I have an obsession here.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those kids that was just like thrown in front of the TV, and I would just sit there like most of my days. Like my mum would just put on like the VHS tapes that we had, like a lot of Disney. Like I remember having a lot of Disney films, and like especially those kind of sequels, you know, like Cinderella 2, Mulan 2, like, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
And I watched definitely some films I shouldn't have watched at that young. I watched like Blues Brothers when I was like 7, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have watched that. Yeah, and then I think really in my sort of teenage years, I kind of started sort of analyzing films. I was like, oh, you know, why, you know, what does the kind of cinematography mean, you know, the editing, and sort of analyzing that. So I think when I was sort of about 15, sort of I watched like Fight Club, you know, Inception, these kinds of films, like a lot of like Nolan, like Denis Villeneuve's like Prisoners. Like I just kind of, I was like, I just sat up in my seat and was like, oh, okay, you know, these films mean something. You know, obviously there's a lot more films that are just enjoyable that I just watch my friends or families, like really light-hearted films. But I think that's when I kind of got into more like thrillers, mysteries, independent film as well. And I started to kind of like look at it in a different way. And that's when I actually decided to study film at university. So you sort of decide what you want to study, about 17 here. And yeah, so I did film production and screenwriting as my degree. So I was always knew there was like, that was a passion of mine. I was like, oh, I'm curious to know how things get made. So yeah, I went and did that degree, and yeah, I've just been obsessed with films since, and I still don't know enough. Like it's always like,
Right.
oh, you haven't seen these classic films, or you don't know about this like new wave French. I'm like, no, because there's not enough time. And yeah, but it's just I love it because it's just constantly growing and changing, and yeah, new things to be obsessed with.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful way to put it. It feels like one of those things where like there's never enough time truly
Mm.
to fully indulge in film. And I think that's one of the beautiful things. You know, when I was a kid, I remember some of those big pivotal moments for me were watching the behind the scenes of a lot of movies were on the
Yeah,
DVDs
yeah.
because you know DVDs were kind of newer back then, and it's
Mm.
like we're kind of making that shift from VHS, but now you have this whole new element of like all these DVDs and Blu-rays that have like all this behind the scenes footage, and seeing just how these movies were made. I always found myself really endeared by like animatronics and
Mm.
effects and all these things that like make a movie like work. And then of course as you get older you start analyzing things, you know,
Yeah.
scripts and you know, cinematography, all these things that really make something stand out. And so yeah, it's great to kind of hear like where that started for you and where that
Mm.
love comes from. Now, you know, obviously I already mentioned it, but you've had some incredible success over the course of the last year with these big opportunities. You even have your interview with Josh O'Connor that has over 20,000 views on your YouTube channel, which is crazy. And it wasn't like listen, I've had some awesome opportunities as well
Mm.
to interview some actors and filmmakers on smaller scales, and but usually it's kind of like in this kind of situation, you
Yeah.
know, where like as soon as it's over I get that opportunity to just like breathe and like, you know, the nerves are gone. You've done these in person on the
Mm.
fly, you know, no comfort. Like I've done mine in like pajama pants, you know. So what were those moments like? Where did those doors open? When did you how did you feel when you found out, okay, you're going to be interviewing Josh O'Connor? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you interviewed Josh O'Connor like on a stage, right? Like in front of other people.
No, not on that one. That
Okay.
was just, yeah, just in the
But you
com
have done stuff on stage in general
I
too,
have
right?
as well. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
I
Which
guess,
is
yeah,
crazy.
bringing you guys back, like, probably about a year ago, actually. So it was like, I didn't really do any, like, in-person I've done a few Zoom, like, interviews, like you say, Anthony, like this kind of thing before on the channel. And then, yeah, about almost a year ago, sort of Challenges has dropped last April, and there's this big, big hype around this film, and I was like, Josh O'Connor, he's my boy. He's like my kind of very much indie film guy, you know, I've been following for the past 7 years or so. And yeah, so not far from me is a local independent cinema called The Watershed, which is in Bristol. And I know a lot of people that work there just through like going to the cinema and chatting to people, you just get talking. So I know a lot of people who work on the comms team, and I saw this event was happening, said Josh O'Connor is coming to Bristol to talk about Lackey Mara, which was another independent film he had coming out. I was like, oh my God, I have to go. And then speaking to someone, I was like, you know, what are the chances if, you know, I could get a little interview, like, oh, let me see. And I was like, what? Like, I was just, you know, it just on the fly, I was just like, what if this happened? And they're like, give me like a week and I'll get back to you. So about 5 days before I got the thumbs up, And then that's when the panic set in. I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Because I hadn't done like an in-person interview at that point. So it's very intimidating. However, actually, when I got there on the day, it ended up being me, Josh, and only two other people in the room. And the two people, like people I knew who worked at the cinema. He had no team with him, no press, no hair and makeup, whatever. He came by himself, and we sat on a little sofa
Right.
and we just chatted for like a good 15 minutes. And like he was willing to chat afterwards. And I was like, it was so nerve-wracking. Like the first time doing it, I could feel like if you really look on the video, like my hand is like shaking a little bit on like the first question. I'm like, hi Josh. Because it's intimidating, especially it's someone like you have a crush on as well. So I was like, oh my God. And then I kind of settled into it, I feel. But yeah, it was just absolutely mad. And that kind of kicked off a lot of things last year. Then a couple of months after, I got the opportunity, what you were saying, Anthony, to do a live Q&A with the band Kneecap, who
Right.
an Irish rap group. And yeah, I'd seen the film before anyway. And because of that interview with Josh, I was able to do a live Q&A with the band after the film with about, I think it was like in the cinema I was in, and then the screen to the cinema like behind. So I think technically, 270 people were watching me speak to like this group of guys. I was like, oh my God. So again, another nerve-wracking thing to do. Yeah, and that was at the same cinema that I did the Josh O'Connor thing. And yeah, and then more recently I got to go to Glasgow Film Festival, and that's where I got to interview George McKay on the red carpet, my first red carpet. Again, very daunting. Like these are all like first time things. So
Right.
really, really scary. And then again, I just saw like 3 weeks later, he was coming to Bristol and said, yeah, George and Josh, the director, are coming to Bristol. And I was like, again, hey, what are the chances if I could do 10 minutes interview in a room like I did with Josh? They're like, sure, we'll try. And it's just, I just found like there's no harm in asking.
Right.
You know, the worst they're going to say is no. So yeah, it's just been like, I guess, kind of knowing people, but also just asking and like hanging around in like your local independent cinemas. Like if you're going to go to like your multiplexes and your chains, you're not really going to get that. But if you go to the smaller stuff, you get to know the staff, and then maybe opportunities will happen. But yeah, it's been a crazy year in terms of those interviews, and it's just, hopefully it just keeps going. Hopefully
Yeah,
more people.
it's been awesome to see, honestly. It's been really, really cool to see because, it's like we have so many people in our circle, and, sometimes it's just like it's a tough, like when we upload movie related content, we're
Yeah.
fighting against like all the big boys who already have like hundreds of thousands or thousands in general or millions of subscribers, all the way down to the the guy that's filming in his mom's basement. Like we're really
Yeah.
competing with a wide array of people. And so yeah, it's awesome to see anybody that I know in this space to kind of break through and have these opportunities, because it is one of those things where it's like, I recognize the challenge, and I recognize the challenge of interviewing. Like I said, I haven't done any in person yet.
It's
but
coming, Anthony. I know it's coming.
Oh, it's coming. I believe it. I believe it. Thank you so much. We're speaking into existence.
Exactly.
But even the opportunities I've had, kind of like you were saying, that first little bit, those first few questions, you're sweating a little bit. You're just a little uncomfortable, and but it is kind of nice. I've found also after a few questions, you settle in. You kind of start to realize like this person's just a person, and it's and they treat you like a person more often than not too, so it's nice. So that's really awesome to hear. I'm congratulations on that. I just definitely wanted to hear a little bit behind the scenes. And I'm kind of curious now, what is something you would love to kind of do with your channel? Obviously you're really prominent on Instagram and TikTok too. You're very consistent there with uploads. By the way, for everybody listening and watching, you guys can find the link to Sarah's YouTube channel and all that jazz down below. So definitely go and follow, because got some great top tier content that we're obviously already talking about here. But what would you like to do with your channel moving forward? What are some things that you would like to see happen?
I mean, one thing, I guess, coming off the back of the interviews, like I've always wanted to do is like press junkets. Like, when you see like clips of people doing like 5 minutes in like a hotel kind of setup with people, I'd love to have that opportunity, but that's not happened yet. But hopefully if I talk to the right people.
It's coming.
Yeah, because he's got to London for a day and just do it. I'm like, that's that would kick off some stuff. I'd love to do like more like vlog stuff. I used to do that back in the day with like comic cons, but I've not been to, I didn't go to one last year, I don't think, no. But I'd like to do more like kind of vlogs and like casual stuff as well. But yeah, the big goal is like, it's the press junkets for me, like, you know, getting the reaction when you sit down and like there's two people sitting in front, like I'd love to have just any shot. I don't really care what the film is, to be honest, just
Right.
something that would be, you know, that opportunity to be amazing. So that's kind of where I'd like to see it go. But yeah, just keep doing what I'm doing, like festival coverages. I'd love to go abroad and like maybe come to like America, Canada, do some like international film festivals, and just keep getting bigger and bigger and just expanding the network of like amazing people that I've connected with on the internet, like all over the world. I know people on almost every continent, I feel, and it's just like, yeah, I could, if I like latch onto that and just sort of say, oh, you know, nice to meet up with people, but also like let's go do something like film related. So, yeah, there's definitely room to grow, definitely.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I love to hear that. And yeah, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing too about what we do on YouTube is like, especially with the movie space, is like there's such a huge community and there's
Mm.
so many people kind
Oh
of
yeah.
similar to you. I know people all over the world now that I consider to be like good friends, you know, and that's one of those things that like I don't think I necessarily expected that when I started. I know when I
Mm.
started my YouTube channel, I always say that it was kind of like it was for building a sense of community. Because I don't know if you kind of had this happen a little bit before you started your channel, but like, you know, you'd go to work and some, you know, maybe you were like passionate about a movie you just saw and you
Mm.
really want to talk about it and your coworkers just could not care less, you know, like you're
Yeah.
talking about cinematography and the director and this, that, and the third, and they only care if it's good or bad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I started my channel kind of to like seek out that sense of community, and I'm so
Mm.
grateful to have found it. And so now all these years later, to know so many people and have had chats with so many great like-minded people who just love film is such an amazing thing. It creates this real great sense of camaraderie. I'm kind of curious. So obviously, we talked about like what it was like when you started your channel, but what was kind of your goal when you started it? Did you have like a specific thing in your mind that you're like, or was it just kind of like on the fly? You want to do this for fun, or is it kind of like something like you had like a vision?
I don't think I had like a clear vision. I don't think if you asked me 5 years ago, you know, I would have wanted to say like interview celebrities. I don't think that was my intention. I think it was just like you say, just doing like latest reviews of whatever was coming out at the time on streaming, especially streaming it because it was in lockdown as well. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about movies, and yeah, and I didn't really have an intention for it to grow. It was always going to be a hobby. Yeah, I didn't think. Whereas now I'm like, you know, with the right people, this could really take off and kind of be a little avenue for me. But yeah, it was never my intention. I just yap online about my latest crushes of the month, or you know, films that I hate that lots of people love, and I love creating the conversations and the chaos that come with it. But yeah, no, I just thought it was gonna be little old me chatting into a void, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of love that last part you said there because it's one of those fun things where like I feel like I remember before starting this channel and even maybe in the very beginning, you know, when you start talking about movies online and you want people to like kind of agree with you,
Mm,
there's that part of you that's like, oh, I gotta get it right, right? But
yeah,
the longer you do this, the more you realize like there's no real right, you know, like it's just
no,
so divisive. Even a movie that's widely praised, you're gonna have somebody comment on your video like this movie sucks, you know, like you
yeah,
don't know what you're talking about. And so it's one of those things you kind of just have to be true to yourself and do your best to elaborate on where that love or that hatred for a film comes from. So yeah, I definitely get you on that. Now you mentioned before about the film festivals and you've covered a few now. I'm curious,
yeah.
do you have a favorite and like maybe like what it was about that film festival that stood out to you that you covered so far?
I think I really enjoyed. I mean, a big one in the UK is London Film Festival.
Right.
I'm planning to go back there again this year. It happens around October time, and it's really good because you get to see a lot of films that come out of things like Cannes and Venice, but you know, a bit more closer to home. And it's a great networking thing. The sort of times that I've gone, I've been able to meet with a lot of like British kind of film critics who work professionally, write for magazines and papers, or YouTubers or TikTokers, whatever it is. It's such a good like pool of meeting people, and you get to see films like really far in advance. I remember seeing, what was one that I saw really far ahead? I can't remember, but you get to see things maybe like 4 or 5 months ahead, some of
Wow.
them. like it's really worth it. And then some could be dropping on Netflix in like 2 weeks' time. So you
Right.
have to really kind of pick and choose what's worth it, because you've got to get up, you've got to be at the cinema for 8 a.m.
Right.
seated for an 8 a.m. screening. And then that film that's shown at 8 a.m. is normally the gala in the evening where you have the talent. So if you watch, say, for example, I watched The French Dispatch 8 a.m., Timothy Chalamet is going to be there at like 7 p.m. and you've got to be ready to like interview. I
Right.
mean, I didn't interview Timothy Chalamet. That's the dream, but
Right. Right.
but yeah, those opportunities are there. But I think that's a really good one. It's so big. But then I've been to like smaller ones. Like I went to one last year called Bath Film Festival. I don't know if you know the area of Bath in southwest England. Very kind of beautiful historic buildings, and yeah, they showed a lot of like more independent films. I saw like my first Buster Keaton film, and it was with like a
I remember you
live
saying that.
piano
Yeah.
score. That was like crazy to see. Like, and it just kind of got me into silent movies. So I've been on a bit of a silent movie craze, especially Buster Keaton the last couple of months. And that one's really close to me. So again, meeting like other like-minded creatives. So seeing like the different scales in the UK of what you can get really has been really interesting. But I think, yeah, maybe not this year. Maybe next year I'll do like a bigger trip abroad, like I say.
Nice, nice. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I actually just went. I didn't have the money this year because I did not. I forgot to. This is on me. I'm part of a critics association in my local area, and I could have probably gotten it, but I forgot to apply for press accreditation for the Florida Film Festival. That's
Oh,
I
nice.
believe just come to an. Or it's about to end in 2 days. Um, so I didn't get to go, and I didn't have the money to like buy all the screenings for the film festival, I'll be
Yeah.
honest. But I did get invited to see at a 10 a.m. screening, so kind of like what you're saying, the early screening. I did get invited to see The Legend of Ochi
Oh, I
last
don't know that
week,
one.
which is a new A24 film that's coming out.
Oh, okay.
Very akin to like an ET. It's it's got Willem Dafoe in it, and it centers on
Sold.
a
I'm
young girl.
sold.
Right, right. He's definitely giving his like modern day Willem Dafoe performance, very akin to like the things he's done in like the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh,
That like weird European accent, the very
yeah.
eccentric, dialogue, and yeah, it centers on a little girl who um finds herself with this little primate creature called an Ochi. It almost looks like a Pokemon, but they
Mm,
set up like this mystical island that there are these Ochi that live in the forest, these ape-like creatures, and to everybody else, they're like these dangerous creatures to stay away from. But there's
yeah.
more under the surface. This young girl who doesn't necessarily believe in the threat finds herself with this baby and decides to try to take the baby back to its family of Ochi,
Okay.
and then the humans are trying to stop her. But it's a really cute movie, very
Mm,
akin to like ET in some ways, but
yeah, yeah.
but with a big sprinkling of that weirdness that A24 brings to the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to see that at the Florida Film
Oh,
Festival, which
sweet.
was really nice. And so yeah, there is that kind of like great opportunity. But yeah, when I was waking up for a 10 a.m. Screening, like it was definitely not my
Never.
favorite thing. Yeah.
Have you been to any big ones, Anthony? Like anything like New York or anything like that?
No, I've never been to any big ones, unfortunately. It's definitely on my bucket list. I have had the awesome opportunity to be sent screeners for
Yeah,
certain ones to watch at home that are debuting at a film festival. So
yeah, me
actually
too.
this last year I covered a couple movies from the Berlin Film Festival.
Mm,
I can't remember exactly what the German name for it is, but the Berlin Film Festival, they
yeah,
sent me like 4 or 5 movies to cover on my channel, and
sweet.
I covered a couple. So I've had opportunities to cover movies from the film festivals, but I've never
Mm,
been there to see, more often than not, the really big ones that like you have to be there
yeah,
in person to see. Um, but I'm definitely not complaining because I feel very grateful to even have the accreditation I do to see stuff early. More often than not, I have at least an early review for the movie of the week or two movies
mm,
of the week early in that week.
yeah.
On Monday, I have my review dropping for the full season of Star Wars Andor, season
Whoa,
two, which the 3 episode premiere is on Tuesday. But the kind folks over at Disney sent me the full season, and I've already seen it all. So yeah,
nice.
stay tuned for that review. But yeah, so it's pretty awesome, and it's really great to hear like just kind of how your journey has been, and kind of what you want to do with it. So now I'm curious too, film has kind of been like a obviously it's always subjective, but there's been a lot of conversation in the modern day about the idea of there not being original films. And I always struggle with that notion as somebody who watches a lot of films. And I'm curious your take on that. Do you feel like we live in a time where there's no original films, or do you feel like there's more out there than people are giving credit?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, not to link it back to my interview, but I am speaking with Joshua Oppenheimer. The first thing I said to him was like, "Thank you for making something original. Like, whatever you think about the film, good or bad." I was like, "At least it's original," which I think is, it's tricky to make stuff like that. I'm someone who's kind of against like the sequel, reboot, all that kind of refranchise of things. Yeah, and it's sometimes really why I go back to like indie cinema. Like I just think that's where the original concepts are. But yeah, we're in a crazy time, and I think it doesn't help with like the streaming stuff. A lot of some of the original content like made like on Prime or Netflix, like it can be original, but like it's also not an original story. Like, there's a couple of like archetypes of story routes people go down, and it's
Right.
like, oh, tick box. But yeah, or anything that's like franchised reboots. I mean, saying that, I am kind of curious to see the Final Destination film coming out, for example, because
Right.
I've never seen them. So I need to rewatch. I need to watch them
Really?
first. Yeah, yeah, yeah. As a horror fan with all the horror things behind it.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, I've like missed that one, so I'm excited for that one. But like when they did the like again like horror like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was like, oh, like and especially that was Netflix made. So I'm quite it's such a weird time for like films. But that's why things are great that are like Mubi, where you get to see a lot of like international films, indie films. I try and seek it out, but it's so hard. Like I think the average film watcher, whether they just watch their blockbusters, they just go and see the Marvels, they see, whatever's on streaming, they're just going to see the stuff that's on the homepage. Whereas like we might go and like dig in and find those more interesting and unique stories. But I think to the masses, I think we're just getting kind of a lot of recycled stuff, which is a shame.
Yeah, no, well, I guess that's kind of like it's a second part of my question is how do you feel about the people who kind of like say there aren't original movies and that they, complain that we're getting sequels and reboots, but they only go and support those movies. Where does your head lie when you hear those kind of discussions?
Yeah, it's tricky because like there's certain franchises that I'll stick it out for, like Scream and stuff, that I will
Right,
like, oh yeah, I'll be there. Like bring back the legacy characters, sure, I'll be there.
right, right.
But I think, yeah, when it's like a default, I feel like it's kind of like a cliche answer to say, and you're like, oh, there's no original. That's all I see on like TikTok all the time. I'm like, but you're not out there supporting independent film. You're not like, you're just watching Minecraft. You're watching like whatever's at the forefront of like the cinema and like or whatever the popcorn bucket is, or whatever's trending. You're not kind of seeking out the right films. But I don't know, maybe it's tricky. It's really tricky. Yeah, I just think it's the importance of going to your cinema, seeing what's out there, buying physical media as well. Like I think that's a great way to kind of find new stuff, original stuff as well. I mean, I go back, like I'm very much the same with films and books. I read classics like the OG because I want to see where this derivative story comes from and like where all the references are from. But yeah, I think it's they are remaking stuff, they are sort of repurposing stuff, but that's not the only thing. So I just don't think people either look hard enough or know where to look and like have that source, be it a content creator or a newspaper or something, tell them to find something different. So yeah, it's tricky.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It honestly, to be honest, to be frank, it pisses me off because it's just like the movies are there, right? Because as somebody who watches so many movies, I don't expect people to watch as much as we do because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we do this as like a side hustle, as like a hobby, as a passion, but as as a means to possibly open doors for ourselves in another space.
Mhm.
So we got to watch a lot more than the usual person, and more people don't. Sometimes I'm sure if you're like me, sometimes you compromise some sleep to watch some things. You compromise
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
your
yeah.
time to watch these things. So I get that
Mm.
that sacrifice isn't for everybody. I'm curious. Do you have a movie that comes to mind of recent memory that you really enjoyed and you just were so bummed to see it flop? For me, the immediate answer was my favorite film I saw in 2024, which was Better Man. That movie flopped so hard in the theaters, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I saw it 5 times in theaters, and
Wow.
I was heartbroken to see that it was like not doing well. So I'm curious, if do you have like your own version of that in recent memory?
I mean, first off, I should probably say, Anthony, I've not seen Better Man still. I've still not
Well, you
seen
should. You
it.
absolutely should. It's such a good movie. I think everybody should see Better Man. I should be. Robbie Williams doesn't know it, but I should be like an advocate for the film. He should be. He should have me like on his social media promoting the film because I will sing its praises every day.
Have you become a fan now you've seen that film?
Yeah, it's funny because when I saw the trailer, I thought, okay, I should preface this by saying that I am a sucker for weird concepts, right? So I
Yeah.
understand the notion for some people that they see something weird and they're kind of turned off. I like weird. And so when I saw the concept of this biopic of this pop star that I know of, but he's not nearly as popular here in the States as he is
Mm,
obviously in the UK
yeah.
and just Europe in general, um, I was like, okay, cool, I'll check this out. This looks like a fun, bonkers idea. I was laughing at a lot of the jokes of like Caesar from Planet of the Apes is singing
Mhm,
now and all these different things. But then I saw the movie at an early screening in November, I want to say,
mm,
and I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. And mind you, I knew a couple of songs, but I didn't really know his music. I just knew of,
mm.
where I really knew him from? Seeing him like on random talk show clips like Graham Norton or like just random things
Yeah.
over the course of years. I just knew of him. I knew of
Mm,
Take That, but I wasn't really familiar with him. And so when I saw the movie, it was a real true introduction to his story. And not to get too mopey about it, but last year I had a really rough year in
yeah.
terms of my mental health. And it was crazy. I had two movies that were really integral for my like well-being, and I think in a lot of ways. Because if you're like me, and I'm sure you are, these sometimes movies just hit you in a way a little bit more emotionally because we spend such deep time with them. Some people just watch movies and they just kind of have them on. And then when I
Mm,
watch a movie, I give myself to it, And so that's where it's disappointing when a movie sucks that you're like you gave yourself to it and then it just did not do anything with it. But with Better Man and then the other one being Inside Out 2, those are two movies for me that like really hit my heart because
mm,
to just to paint the picture, I had what I call like my anxiety event last year in June through July. And suddenly I was getting put on some anxiety medication and suddenly um like I started having nonstop panic attacks. I
mm,
couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't keep food down.
mm,
I was like my body temperature was fluctuating from hot to cold. I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die. I thought like the end of my life was going to be
mm,
in those weeks that it was happening. And I was going to the doctor. They couldn't really give me an answer. And from what I gathered after all this time, I had a poor reaction to the anxiety medication.
mm.
But the understanding I have is that it essentially like unlocked all of the pent up anxiety I had and just had it like flood out all at once.
Yeah.
And so it was like probably about a good 3 4 weeks till I felt normal again. I wasn't
Mm,
sleeping for days. It was rough. And so the week that that happened, um, Inside Out 2 came out, and so I saw Inside Out 2, and I'm just, like, bawling my eyes out. The
yeah.
first time I went to see it, everybody who was gonna come with me couldn't make it. My wife couldn't make it, my mom couldn't make it, and, so I was sat there with their seats still, like, I still had their seats
Mm.
next to me empty, just crying alone in the
Oh,
theater,
man.
especially in the end of the movie with
Yeah.
everything that's going on, and
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't help but feel so couldn't help but feel so like it related to me so much, especially, that scene at the end where anxiety is just running around and then they go inside that like vortex
Oof,
and they're just there like frozen.
chills just thinking about it. It's
It
crazy.
it was crazy. It made me feel like so seen, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people felt
Yeah.
that way with that movie. I think Inside Out, both of them in general, have done a great job at that. But to also add more context, outside of just being like an anxious person, I was just putting so much pressure on myself between
Mm,
YouTube and like the views and my day job and my relationship and my own life and putting on weight or like and then also just with that came a lot of like self-hatred, something that I was kind of just allowing to happen over and over and over and over
Mm.
again, and I was just kind of living in it. I would just spend days kind of like miserable. And then I'd get on camera and I'd be like, "Hey, everybody, we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
Barney's Playhouse or something." And I'd be like, and as soon as the camera was over, I can't tell you how many like videos I edited with me like kind of beating myself up on camera,
Mm.
just being upset that I was
Yeah,
making a
yeah.
mistake, and then they cut that out. And I'm sure you've had those moments too. I feel like when you're creative, it just
Oh, yeah.
happens. But I kind of let it build up to a point where it exploded. So all this going back to what we were
Mm.
talking about with Better Man. When Better Man came out, um, without spoiling it for you who haven't seen it, a big part of the movie that I don't think the marketing showed is that it's not just about Robbie Williams becoming famous and he's an ape.
Mm.
That's a part of it, but a big part of it is also like his demons. It's about battling your demons, and over
Yeah.
the course of the film, he sees younger iterations of himself in the audience when
Oh,
he's
okay.
performing or in certain moments that are big for his career. He sees younger versions of himself telling him he's worthless, that he's nothing, that he's a failure, that he should stop, that like he's gonna die, all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so the movie really ultimately culminates to him becoming, as the title suggests, a better man, and fighting
Mm.
these demons, and obviously dealing with substance abuse and different things like that, which I've also had my run-ins with. So the film just felt so relatable to me. And then on top of that, I also ended up loving the songs. I ended up loving the musical numbers. I ended up loving the performances and the choreography and the cinematography. So yeah, a very long-winded response there to just say like,
I love it.
it was a movie that really hit my soul and hit me at the
Mm.
right time. So highly recommend Better Man to
Amazing.
you, to everybody else. Everybody should watch it. I
Amazing.
think it was completely snubbed. The fact that Emilia Perez was nominated so much this last year, and that something like Better Man or even Wicked weren't
Yeah.
like praised as much as they should have been was
Mm.
just heart wrenching to me. Um, so yeah, uh,
Oh,
uh,
wow. I'm
yeah,
glad you kind of found those films though in a good way, like, to have that relatability and the connection, like you say, and sort of turn this sort of negative experience for yourself, like into something, maybe a bit more positive and kind of, oh, I feel seen and I feel like, not alone, which is great. And the great thing about cinema, it's sort of, you may have seen those films by yourself, but it was like a shared experience in different ways. So
right,
yeah,
right,
that's awesome. I guess my kind of, again, it's probably thinking my favorite film of last year, which was My Old Ass, which again was an Amazon original film, but had like a really limited run in the cinemas here in the UK anyway. And I just saw it on like a weekday I had off work. I think there was one other guy in the cinema, but I just absolutely bawled my eyes out. I just felt so connected to me. And like, have you seen the film, Anthony?
I haven't. So that's one of those
Oh
that's
boy,
it's on my short list of movies that I was gonna
yeah,
try to catch up on at the end of the year. I always try to do like a binge and catch up on anything I missed,
yeah.
and it was on the list. I didn't check it out. But I now I kind of want to see it. Just hearing that it was your
It's
favorite film.
Yeah, it was my favorite film of last year. I think just the emotional weight it had. It was like, one of those films that you're like laughing and crying at the same time.
Right.
It was just had every emotion, and then yeah, it was just, yeah, I think it just captures kind of it's very much like a coming of age film, which is like my jam completely. I love a coming of
Right.
age film. There's like Justin Bieber references. I was like, oh my God, as someone who grew up listening to Justin Bieber, that's kind of cringe. And I was like, yep, I've been there. And yeah, it was like perfect. And I saw it. I must have seen it at the right time in my life. And yeah, it just got me in all the emotions. And it's one of those films I'm a little bit scared again to rewatch. I don't know if you get that. Like, your viewing experience of the film in the cinema, especially, like that was amazing, and like I felt all these things, and then you're like, I'm scared to watch it again because what if it's not as good? And I'm
Right.
scared with that film, but I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not giving it a chance, but it happens to some films for me.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that. I find that for me tends to happen with more with movies that were just so impactful that or like so heavy that I just
Mhm.
can't see myself like throwing it on often just because
Yeah.
of like the subject matter. But I have had those situations where it's like, oh, I just don't want this movie to be ruined for me, or the unfortunate time where you do watch a movie that you enjoyed,
Mhm.
specifically one when you were younger. If you ever have one of those
Yeah.
movies that you rewatch from when you were a kid that just
Oh,
like
loads.
just do not hold up, and you're just like, oh, this definitely blows. But yeah, I find it more with films that like have like heavy subject matter, like a
Mm.
film that I could think of right off the top of the head recently was like Warfare. I don't know if you've seen Warfare yet,
No,
but
I've not seen it yet. Is it
it's
quite heavy then?
it's heavy. It's super heavy. It's an
Mm.
interesting film. I said it in the beginning of my review for it that it's not even a kind of film that I would say that you kind of have to throw the like reviewing film handbook out the window is the best way I
Okay.
could put it because it doesn't really have a narrative. I wouldn't call it a story. It's really about an event. It's about a moment. It's just a group of
Mm.
soldiers in a scary situation
Right.
trying to get the backup to get out of there. And it's co-directed by Alex Garland, who did Civil War last
Yeah.
year, Ex Machina, and tons of other great things. But he co-directed it with a guy named Ray Mendoza, who was actually one of the soldiers who's in the movie, and
Mm. Yeah.
it's based on his actual memory and the
Mm.
memory of the soldiers that survived this incident, like telling the story. And it's just the best way I can describe it is just chaos, like one big event unfolds for these guys. It kind of starts with like the kind of slow monotony of being a soldier in Iraq in
Mm.
2000 in the 2000s, and just like, them kind of keeping an eye on shady suspects coming by, and like them kind of like just chilling around, waiting
Mm.
for orders. And then suddenly, once the first
Kicks off.
gunshots go off, once the first explosions go on, the sound design is crazy. I mean, the muffling, the high pitched nature, the way that they were able to really capture that like being lost in the madness kind of sound.
Mm.
The gunshots are like terrifying. Seeing it in IMAX was just crazy. Like it was
Mm.
super punchy audio, and it was just a movie where like you suddenly have like the bravest guy in the room is now in the corner shivering in a fetal position. Then you got
Oh.
this other guy in the background the entire time screaming because his legs got blown to smithereens. And so you have like this whole thing of just like chaos. The
Mm.
performances are so realistic. Everything about it just feels so real. But with that, it's like unless I'm showing that to somebody else, like if something like, hey, you haven't seen this, let's watch this. I
Yeah.
can't see myself watching it again. Another one from the past that comes to mind immediately is something like The Passion of the Christ, which is just like whether you're religious or not, it's just such a
Mm.
heavy movie that it's
Yeah.
not like you're gonna sit down for dinner and throw that on. You know what I mean? Like it needs the right.
Hey, it's Easter weekend this, in my
Well, I guess that would be the appropriate time. But even then, I feel like you kind of have to like mentally prepare. Like I'm about to
Mm.
watch a heavy movie. Like I'm not gonna leave this viewing. Like the credits are not gonna roll, and I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, well, this is amazing."
Put it on
Um,
Letterboxd. Yeah.
right, and that's an incredible movie. I'll go on Letterbox about it afterwards, but it's one of those I gotta be prepared for. And even sometimes there's just like movies that are sad. Like in recent years, like another one too that is such a great movie. It was one of my favorite movies in the year it came out was Past Lives. I don't know
Oh,
if you saw
yeah.
that one, but
Yeah,
it's
I did.
again, it's like, not throwing that on for breakfast, it's like it's
Uh, no, it's too poetic and heartbreaking and everything. But I've listened to the music. That's the only thing that I've not watched the film
right.
since, but I remember I was like the score was great. So it's great music if you want to like work because it's just like instrumental. Yeah, I'd recommend that if you want some new music to listen to as you're working.
I'll need to dive back into the score because all I remember is my heart just being shattered in these moments, more so than the music. I do remember the music being good though when I saw it, but I could not remember how it sounds now. So I'm actually curious to look it up
Yeah.
after this. Do you have any of those movies though that come to mind that like are really great movies you love, but that they're just so heavy that you just can't see yourself like throwing them on anytime soon?
I'm trying to think some heavy stuff. What did I watch recently? There's the film I watched early this year that I got on physical media that I heard people talk about last year, and it's a British film called How to Have Sex. It came out through Mubi, maybe A24 as well, and it's just like epitomizes kind of British teenage holiday culture. Sort of when you go abroad to mainly like Spain, and like you're probably underage drinking and partying and stuff. And there's just some scenes in there that are very heavy, and it's like, what is the worst situation that could happen to this young group of girls? It's going to happen. And yeah, they just show it in such a kind of, not in a brutal way, but in a very sort of grounded way. But it still makes you feel really uncomfortable. But it's a really well crafted film, and the person who directed it, I think her name's Molly. She's a cinematographer, so she directed it, and she also did a film last year called Scrapper, which had Harris Dickinson in as well. I'd thoroughly recommend that one. But that was quite heavy to watch, and I'm going to sort of I gave it like 4 stars, but I'm just like, I need to not revisit that for a while because the themes of it were really heavy and kind of, a lot of people have been on those holidays and seen those kinds of scenes that are on it. You're just like, oh, it's really full on. Yeah, I mean, I guess the more kind of light-hearted way of it, I love like the film Prisoners, and I've watched that multiple times, and it's one of the films like I love to put on and see people's reactions to it.
Right.
But even though, like, again, the themes are quite heavy, I'm just like, I watch people, I'm like, do you like it? Like, what do you think of it? Like, it's great, isn't it? Because that was like
Right.
my first introduction to like Denis Villeneuve,
Right.
and the first time I sort of saw Hugh Jackman as like a serious actor, I think. And I was like, I'm just like watching people's reactions to like performances and stuff. But yeah, I've watched that one a few times. But yeah, I think How to Have Sex was a recent one. I'm like, that can be put on the shelf for a while. I can't think if there's anything else recently that I've seen.
I don't know if there's been
No.
any other ones I've seen this year that are like that. But to your point though, a moment ago, I do agree that some these movies are the best kind of movies to show to somebody to get
Mm,
that reaction from
yeah, yeah,
somebody. Like I think that's where I'm best. That's my best opportunity to rewatch something that was heavy for me is
yeah.
to watch it with somebody else who hasn't seen it because it
And
gives
it's
me
like
like
a
a reason.
talking point then, isn't it? It's like a conversation starter. It's like, well,
Right.
what did you
Right.
think about it? How did you see that? And their experience, their personal experience with it as well is always really interesting.
Right, and that fresh take too, like that
Mm,
kinda like that thing we'll never be able to experience again, right? Like, you can't
yeah.
experience those things for the first time. Which on the flip side, I'm curious, do you have, like, a TV show or a movie that you've, what's it called? That you like, you wish that you could erase your memory of and rewatch it from scratch?
Oh my gosh. Um, Hmm. I guess one from like when I was growing up, like I'd love to like now watch it is like the new Doctor Who series. I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan, but like
Yeah,
the
I love
new
Doctor Who.
Who. So from like 2005 onwards, because I watched it when I was like 10 when it came out, and I remember loving it. But be so curious, like just to wipe that world and just kind of be immersed in it because I love that kind of sci-fi world of it, and it just kind of was a great introduction into it for me. And it's just so magical, like in those early series, and the writing was so good, and then it's kind of gone downhill, and then it's come back up again. It's like this constant
Right.
roller coaster, and it's a weird relationship I have with Doctor Who. But
That's a great one. That's a really good one because I won't lie, I haven't seen anything of the last 2 Doctors.
yeah,
But I want to. I just, like, I fell off because it, like, here in the States at least, it kinda disappeared from streaming, so it kinda became hard to watch.
it's on Disney Rat now,
It's on
isn't it? I
Disney
think.
Plus now, right? So, like, I gotta catch up on it, because I know I'm way behind, but I used to be like, I'm watching it the night the episode drops, on
Yeah.
air all the time, but those first few seasons, just everything with Eccleston through Tennant and
Mm,
to Smith is just
yeah,
top tier, like, TV,
it
like, some of
is.
the best television ever
Oh,
created.
100%. Like, the episode, like, Blink is great when you
Right,
first see, like, the weeping angels.
right,
There's a really good episode called Midnight with David Tennant, and he's
right,
just, like,
right,
trapped on a plane, and it's got, like, Merlin, yeah, the guy who plays Merlin in from
right, I
Merlin
remember
and
that one,
stuff.
yeah.
And it's just, like, a really like, there's no aliens, no nothing. It's just, like, really smart, like, writing, and
Right. They
I just
kept it so f it was it I think Doctor Who was one of, like, the last shows that had, like, true, like, really fun episodic television,
yeah.
there's fun to serialized storytelling, and Doctor Who has those elements, but I just love
Mhm.
that I could just throw on an episode and it was about some
Yeah.
random nonsense sometimes, but they made sense of it in such a fun way, like, on paper, it would probably seem so goofy, but, like, they capture that goofiness and, like, give it heart, give it
Yeah.
charm, and give it an identity that just made it so unique to what Doctor Who was all about. So, yeah, that's a really great pick, honestly. I think I would agree with you there, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would you have, like, a film then maybe that you would, like, kind of
I would be
want
curious
to
to rewatch, like, my favorite thing of all time across the board is Star Wars.
mm,
I've loved it since I was a kid, and even now, despite the criticisms of the modern day, I'm definitely more on the positive side. Like,
mm,
I don't think it's the stuff we're getting today is all better than the stuff we got in the past, but I do think we've gotten certain things that have been like some of my favorite Star Wars to ever come out, specifically in the
yeah,
TV realm.
mm,
So I would honestly, I think if I was to name one film in particular, though, if I could experience, and funny enough, it's going to be in theaters next weekend. If I could experience Revenge of the Sith for the first time again, I would absolutely do it. I remember going to see that movie the night it came out. My mom, mind you, there wasn't any like reserved seatings back then.
mm.
My mom let me skip school on the Friday so that I could go to the midnight screening the Thursday
Oh,
night.
wow.
And I remember like coming back to school on Monday and like my friends were like, "Where were you on Friday?" I was like, "Well, my mom let me skip school, kids." And I just remember like I slept in during the day to, or I slept during the day to like be awake at midnight for the movie.
Mm. Wow.
And I just remember waking up and they had the Clone Wars miniseries on TV at the time, and I was watching that as I was getting ready. And then I went, and it was just lightsabers everywhere. The excitement was so big when that movie played out, and then just to see that whole epic finale between Anakin and Obi-Wan was just like a dream come true at the time. And so now, I've seen the movie. I want to say a legitimate, maybe like no joke in my life, maybe over 200 times. Like,
Whoa.
um,
That's
I just,
crazy.
as a kid, I used to just throw them on all the
Oh my
time. Like,
gosh.
and in my adult years, it's slowed down in recent years, especially doing YouTube. Like, I think it's just one of those things where like I don't have as much time to watch the movie, but I know them so well. I could quote them. I
Wow.
could, I can. You can play the music for me, and I'll know exactly what scene that's from and like what the shots are. Like, I'm like that way. I would say for the most part with episode 1 through 7. And then Rogue
Wow.
One, I'm a little bit like that with, but some of the other ones, it gets a little bit harder because it's just so much now. But that would probably be the movie if I could just revisit it from scratch. And so the fact that it's going to be in theaters next week and that I can go see it
God.
on the big screen again. I was in sixth grade when that movie came out, and now here
Wow.
I am.
That's really
It's pretty.
impressive, Anthony. 200 times. I've never watched a film 200 times.
Yeah, because as a kid, I would just throw it on. Like I just remember, like I would just always have it. I would just the prequels in general, like the original six Star Wars movies. I just had them on all the time. Like yeah, all the time. I'm trying to think like of just like there was a period of time like I didn't really watch a lot else.
Mm.
It was just mainly Star Wars or
Whole
consuming like
personality.
it was absolutely anybody who knows me would know that that's the case. Like right now, I just moved into a new place, which is why sat myself here because there's still boxes and stuff
Chaos
everywhere.
that way.
Right, it's a little disastrous, but like I'm sitting right next to like a box full of posters over here, like that are framed, and it's just mostly Star Wars. There's Star
Wow.
Wars like memorabilia everywhere. I own every Star Wars movie in every format that existed when it came out. So I own all the original six, all on VHS. I'm sorry, they didn't do Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith on VHS, but I own four of them on VHS. I own the full six original films on DVD and on Blu-ray. I have the new ones all on Blu-ray and 4K as well. Um, and yeah, and then I have all of the individual like box sets of all the episodes of or like the seasons of all the animated shows and the live
God.
action shows. So on my shelf that I can see from here right now, it's like literally just like a whole two rows of nothing but Star Wars. Um,
Wow. I've
so
got a new Star Wars guy to go to if I need any
oh,
like
I am
trivia or anything or
more than
something.
happy to help anytime. Anytime somebody has a question, I'm more than happy to answer it because I really love it. I'm actually depressed right now because Star Wars Celebration is happening in Japan.
Yeah.
And I've
It's
gone to every celebration since 2009 and I've only missed the last two, including this one, because it was in London the time before.
yeah.
And then this time was in Japan, and I just could not afford the trip. So I'm praying to God. They usually at the end of the weekend they usually announce where they're going next. I just
Mm.
pray it's back in the States. If it's back in the States, I'm in. But anyway, really quickly, I just wanted to look at some of the comments we got here because we did have a
Cool.
few, and I didn't want them to feel neglected. Um, Itaman pops in here saying, "Greetings. Sometimes in art, the more we learn the technicality, the harder it gets to enjoy it." This was
Mm.
obviously earlier in our conversation about like the behind the scenes, and cinema is one of the easier ones, in my opinion. Yeah, I think sometimes. Do you ever find that with movies that you have like a thing where like your mind is so like, I know how they did that or how did they do that, and you're like not just watching it?
Yeah, all the time, especially because I make videos for work for like businesses. That's my day job. So I'm like, oh, they're probably, there's like a boom guy in this like really intense scene,
Right.
who's in that room, or you've seen like behind the scenes photos of like, I don't know, what's his name? The Australian guy from Saltburn on like the new Wuthering Heights. So like I know what he
Right.
looks like. So I'm like, oh, when was that taken? So yeah, it does kind of ruin the magic a little bit. And it's really tricky doing what we do to not avoid like spoilers or like
Right.
kind of break down the process of how films are made. But somehow if I go and see a film in the cinema, I am totally immersed. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar. It's usually at home that those thoughts start to kind of like
Yeah,
do
yeah,
their
yeah,
own thing. And
definitely.
when I'm in the theater, I usually allow myself to kind of just like absorb the film as it
Mm.
is. Um, Edelman also popped in saying that these heavy movies need more appreciation, but it is hard to keep them on the mainstream media since you really don't want to enjoy them multiple times.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cinematic Tendency popped in to say, I wanted to see Warfare on IMAX, but there was no show times a day because of
Ooh.
Minecraft. Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird thing. I'm curious your thoughts. How do you feel about all the craziness about around Minecraft? Because on one hand, I'm happy that if that a film is doing so well. Like we
Yeah.
want, it's this weird thing. You want whatever kind of movie, even though I didn't love Minecraft by any stretch of the imagination. Um, I was really down the middle on it because it was so stupid that I couldn't help but laugh at it. But it was also like just not great story wise or character wise. But it's become this cultural thing. But
Mm.
it's like it's supporting theaters by selling tickets and buying all the snacks and stuff, but it's like now it's become this trend to destroy the theater. How do you feel about all that going on with Minecraft right now?
It's crazy. I mean, like, I've never played Minecraft. I don't, I will probably see it because I saw like Mario, Super Mario, and like all those kind of films. But I will probably watch it at the end of its run at like in the middle of the day, like at 10 a.m.
Right.
or something, if I can avoid these teenagers. But it's just chaos because it's just like it's what you're saying was right, Anthony. Like they're supporting cinemas, which is great, and a lot of cinemas make their money on like food and things like that. But then they're just causing like chaos, like especially here in the UK. At least they're like just throwing food and drinks at this like boxing match is what I get.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why? Like it's just so disrespectful to me. Like littering to me is like a big pet peeve. When I see people do it in the street, I'm like, come on, man! I just pick. Why are you dropping stuff? So to just see people do that and make people's life harder, I'm like, but they're just like teenagers as well. So I'm just like, they're not going to
Right.
listen to adults like us.
Yeah, it's such a shame because it's like I used to work at a theater too, and I worked as an usher. So I just remember
Mm.
like walking into some of these theaters and like just certain people were just like you just have that one section that was just like popcorn and soda everywhere. And it was just always so frustrating. And it was funny to find random things sometime, like a used condom in the back of the theater or something, like where it's like, okay, this isn't great, but at least it's a quick like sweep up with the broom. But yeah, I mean, I've seen these videos here in the States. There was one video that's been going viral of like this theater that went insane, and one guy was being lifted up on another guy's shoulders. So the joke, in case you don't know what's going on, there's like a little zombie that jumps on top of a chicken in
Yeah.
the movie, and so then it's called a chicken jockey, and um, Jack Black's character says chicken jockey, and that's when everybody goes crazy. It's when he says
Wow.
that, and in the movie theater that I saw that video, the kid had like an actual chicken. He snuck an actual chicken into the theater. He's like shaking it in the air. Like that chicken must have been losing its mind.
Wow.
But
What's
yeah,
wrong with people?
that's a good question. That's a really good question. Edelman also popped in here touching on our heavy chat earlier that his new heavy is the
Mm.
Adolescent series on Netflix. I actually haven't seen that. Have you checked it out yet?
Yeah. I was like pretty late to the party, but yeah, it's pretty impressive. Like filmmaking, the concepts like they film each episode is one take as well, so like that's really cool.
Yeah,
Like
I heard
it's a
about that.
mini movie, but yeah, the themes in which it deals with are pretty heavy. Yeah, and there's some great performances. It's worth watching definitely, but it's very much a drama with like hour-long episodes. But you should definitely check it out, I would
Yeah,
say.
I'd like to for sure. I've heard nothing but good things, and honestly, I'm a sucker for long takes, and especially if it's
Yeah.
all one
Oh, you'll
takes in
like
the
this
videos.
then.
Oh, I love
There's some
that
cool
stuff.
stuff.
Um, Obviously, I can't say much yet because the embargo hasn't lifted, but we were talking earlier about Andor season two, and
Mm.
the show doesn't have a whole bunch of them, but there's one in the earlier episodes
Oh,
that's
okay.
just like follows Mon Mothma's character, and it just follows her for like a good like 6 or 7 minutes, but it was just like going through all these different areas. You got all these different characters and all these elaborate costumes coming in
Sweet.
and out, and the cameras working around. It was just like, I love that. And I remember a few years ago, I caught up on Mike Flanagan's film shows that he has on Netflix, The
Yeah,
Haunting
love
of Hill
them.
House. And there's
Mhm.
that episode where they're in the funeral home, and like a
Yeah.
lot of that was done in one take, and
Mhm.
it's just so impressive. Anytime I see that kind of stuff, it just makes me like have nothing but excitement for the filmmaking process. I have
Mm.
nothing but reverence for like the amount of like rehearsal that goes into that for the
Yeah,
cast and crew, and it's just top tier stuff. So yeah, I definitely have
definitely.
to check out Adolescent stuff.
Mm. Yeah, let me
Um,
know your thoughts when you do.
what's that you said?
Let me know your thoughts when you've seen it. I'd be
Oh, will
curious
do,
to
for
hear.
sure, for sure. Jason, the old millennial, is in here. He said, "Hey, Sarah, you've been doing a lot of cool interviews lately," and then popped in also to say that he has to admit that he likes watching Popcorn Chat because of Sarah's accent. Um, I have to agree. You have your accent and your voice in general definitely is like a soothing presence to listen to.
Hmm.
Um,
I
so
have
like
had that before, actually. People have said I did like my friend's podcast intro. They're like, "Your voice is great. Can you do like a little sting like at the beginning?" So I'm like, "You're watching or you're listening to so and so's podcast." But this is what they call a Midlands accent.
all right,
I don't live in the Midlands anymore, but the Midlands is so if you know where London is, which is very
right,
south, if you travel about 2.5 hours north, the middle of England, if you know Birmingham, that's
yeah,
kind of it's like a little bit east of there. So it's kind of a neutral thing. So it's a little bit some phrases you say are very sort of southern. So you might say, how I'm speaking now, but then I say northern words which are like bath, grass, whereas a southern person would say grass, bath, like more like
right, yeah.
fancy, but I'm a bit more in the middle, so it's kind of, I think, quite neutral, really, like a neutral English accent. So yeah, I appreciate it either way.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's great, and I think I honestly envy a lot of our peers who are English or just have UK accents in general, or
Yeah.
even people feel like I think it's some of the coolest accents ever. And mind you, I think maybe that's just coming from an American's perspective of like, because so the area I work in is very tourist heavy,
Mm,
so I would say on a daily basis at work I come across like a lot of tourists. I will always speak to somebody from New Zealand or from France or Italy or the UK, like on a daily basis, like without fail. And I love hearing those accents. And I
yeah.
always tell somebody if they're like, have somebody I was talking to the other day who's Scottish, and I was telling them how much I love their accent. They're like,
Oh
"Oh, I
yeah,
hate it," and they were
Scots
just,
is great.
and they hate it, like and they hate their own accent, or like I hear that so often. And for me, it's like it just feels so cool. And like again, going back to like my favorite franchise, Star Wars, there's that part where it's like everything that's cool about Star Wars sometimes is the actors in
Mm,
these accents. There's some
yeah,
great characters that have just regular American accents, but like I always say, like if Emperor Palpatine was like an American, it just wouldn't work. Like
it's true.
it just would not work. If like a lot of the Imperials like characters were like out there with a
Mm,
country accent, like hey, go get them rebels, it just wouldn't work. It just would not work. It has to
yeah.
be a UK accent. So yeah, I think that you definitely benefit from that because your accent very much has that soothing kind of cool presence to it. You're also not like too like rambunctious. You have like the way you speak is very like it's very chill. So I agree with Jason on that. um all right, let me see if we got any more comments I want to touch on really quickly. um I see Alden Tuttle popped in here to say that his favorite one take is in Daredevil season 3, the prison fights, which is a really great one. I don't know if you've ever seen Daredevil, but
I've
man,
not seen it, no.
super super good. There's some great action one shots in
Yeah.
that show that I highly recommend. But yeah, as we get to the end of this, I don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been a blast to chat with you. Definitely want to have you on again. I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. And as I get kind of going with random rambling and getting this going a lot more moving
Mm,
forward, I definitely want to start having new guests on, but also having guests that I've already had on with other guests that I've already had on. And I feel like, I definitely would love to have you on again or for one of the movie review ones as well. So yeah, just again, I want to kind of open the floor to you. Anything that you're working on that you want people to check out on your channel or like on your Instagram or your TikTok, anything that's recently come out that you want to plug or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, again, we're sort of getting into some sort of festival seasons. So I'm going to be covering a few sort of smaller local ones, maybe a South by Southwest in London. Fingers crossed, I get that
Nice.
through. Yes, there's going to be some exciting stuff. So the best thing to do is follow me on all the socials because it's like instant stuff on Instagram, little short stuff on TikTok, and like the full movie reviews as well on YouTube. So yeah, hopefully a lot more content coming over the next couple of months, really.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as I already said, and as I always say, you guys can find the link to any of my guests down below in the description box. And if you're watching this live, well, you're getting to see this first. But If you're listening to this on Spotify, or if you're interested in listening to this on Spotify and the previous episodes, all of the episodes of Random Rambling, can't even say my own name on my show, is now available on Spotify. The link for that is also down below. Really quickly before we do wrap this up shortly, I did see in here a couple more comments. Edelman saying that my forget so that I can rewatch would be Lost. I'm a sucker for weird mysteries. That's a great show. Have you seen Lost before?
Lost is great. Yeah, it kind of slips off in the last few seasons, but the first few, like, perfection.
Top tier. Yeah, I agree 100%. And then I'm curious on your thoughts on this because I've heard so many takes. Cinematic Tendency saying that he likes the Liverpool accent. When I visited Liverpool last year, our mutual friend Mike and his wife Emma, they both told me that they don't like the Liverpool accent. And anytime I talk to somebody, like I mentioned, who's like a tourist in my area, and I mentioned that I was in Liverpool last year, they always go, "Ugh, the worst accent." What's your take? What's the Sarah take on the Liverpool accent?
I like the Liverpool accent. It's like a running joke, I think, in the UK that it's one of the worst accents.
Okay.
I don't think that's true.
Right.
It gets a bad rep, but I think, yeah, I love Liverpool as a city. I've been there a few times. It's got so much culture, music, history, and the people are so friendly. So I'm like, there's nothing to hate about Liverpool or the people and their accents. But yeah, it's funny. It's like, yeah, there's always people just do it as an impression. I feel it's a go-to, and I can't wait to see what the new Beatles, their attempts at the Scouse accent will be like in their new films.
Right. I'm curious actually. I'm glad you brought that up. How do you feel about that being like they're doing 4 movies that are coming out like right on top of each other pretty much? Like, do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that it's going to backfire? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think it's going to lose momentum really quickly. Like the first one probably be really good. Depends what it is. Maybe it's like, I don't know, Paul Mescal's one or something. It might get really good, like box office numbers, but then I think it might just kind of flail off if it's no good. I think the casting is like, okay, these are like the hot men of right now, like young British actors. But whether they're right for the role, I don't think they are. So yeah, it's a real mixed bag.
Do you think that they're all not right for the role, or or is there a couple that you just stand out to you as like, I don't know about that?
Well, like Barry Keoghan, he kind of looks a little bit like Ringo with his nose, not to sort of bring up his sort of physicalities, but he tried to do a Scouse accent in Saltburn, and that is a dreadful Scouse accent, so that has me scared. Paul Mescal, I think, will be okay as Paul McCartney. Joseph Quinn and Harris Dickinson, I don't think are the right match at all in terms of looking like they're sort of singers or just fit in the vibe in any like things I've seen them do recently. So I'm pretty skeptical. I mean, it's Sam Mendes as well. Sam Mendes is a great director, but I don't know if that's enough to save it really. So
yeah, I'm just worried about. I just don't know how it's gonna really like look like in terms of like the movie theater, like going to like pick show times and have like 4 Beatles movies in theaters at the same time. Like, that's, and if they're not doing well,
yeah,
and it's like, which one do you, I'm sure they'll tell us, but like, which one do you watch first? Does it matter?
Yeah, there's got to be order surely, because surely they're going to cross over like in films, because if they're like joining the band, you're like, but then I've just seen this in this film, like what is
right
is it their later life? I don't know, like it's just, I don't know. I'm curious to check it out, like you say, like at least see one of them.
I'm sure we'll see it, right? But like, will the masses like it? It's curious. Will it pan out? Will it be like something that we see moving forward? Like, do you think if it's a situation that if it works, that we might see more things like that happen?
Maybe it might be an interesting way to do kind of biopics going forward with like, especially like bands or like, groups of people. Yeah, it depends on the artist, I guess. Like, could you do it for Rolling Stones, who are, the kind of equal to the Beatles? I'm not sure, like, because I don't think each individual has their own characters. I think it's so interesting, but maybe do you put them on streaming service? Did you put it in like a VR world? Like, where do you put the kind of content? Maybe it's not made for cinema. I don't know. Yeah, so it could be a whole new conversation of filmmaking, maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely curious. I think it should be interesting. But we'll see how it turns out for sure. But
Yeah.
anyway, Sarah, really, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. It was a lot of fun. Again, guys, the link to Popcorn Chat is down below in the description box. So go give Sarah some love. Go follow her on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. Keep up with her coverage of films, and soon enough she's going to be doing press junkets with The Rock or somebody big.
We hope
uh,
so one
yeah,
day.
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So we'll see you guys in the next one, and you guys have a great one. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.